Welcome to our Collaboration for Innovation 4th Google Hangout on Air. Collaboration for Innovation, Advancing Equity and Academic Excellence, is a collaborative work between the Panasonic Foundation and the Consortium for School Networking, and most importantly, 15 district leadership teams who are committed to breaking the links between poverty, race, and educational outcomes for all. And when we say all, we mean all means all. I'm Ann Ware, and I'll serve as your Hangout moderator today. Also joining me today is Scott Thompson. Scott serves as the Assistant Executive Director for the Panasonic Foundation. Opportunity culture is our topic today, and as we move forward with today's discussion, you'll quickly recognize how this opportunity culture initiative supports the Collaboration for Innovation's goal of advancing equity and excellence. We're very honored today to have Dr. Brian Hassel and Daniel Swartz, who will discuss the role of opportunity culture and examples of its progress in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools in North Carolina. A little bit about Brian. He is the co-director of Public Impact. Brian consults nationally with leading public agencies and nonprofits and foundations working for dramatic improvements in K-12 education. In fact, Dr. Hassel's recent work includes co-authoring a policy brief that you can access online. It's titled Seizing Opportunity at the Top, How the U.S. Can Reach Every Child with an Effective Teacher. And also with us today is Daniel Swartz. Daniel is from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. He is the Human Capital Strategy Specialist for Project Lift, and we'll hear more about Project Lift today. We encourage our Hangout presenters on air to add your comments and questions for Brian or for Dan in the comment area, and we'll turn those over to them. So at this point in time, I'll turn it over to Brian. Brian?
Brian, you're muted.
I'm now unmuted. So thanks, Ann, for having us. We really appreciate it. Looking forward to presenting a few ideas about this Opportunity Culture Initiative and then hearing questions and comments from you about it as it may relate to what's going on in your districts. So what I'm going to do is just briefly describe what an opportunity culture is, what are some of the models that we're working on. Dan from Charlotte is going to talk about some of the work that's going on in the Opportunity Culture Initiative within Charlotte, and then we'll go from there. So what I'm going to do is just turn to my slides and then just make a few remarks about what do we mean by an opportunity culture. The basic idea here is we know all of our districts have excellent teachers in the classroom, and they make all the difference for students. How can we extend their reach to more kids? If we have a great third grade teacher, how can we increase her impact from one classroom to many classrooms? And that's really what extending the reach means. And how can we do it in a way that creates a career path for her so that she can earn more over time and advance in her career without leaving the classroom? What I'm going to do to describe this is talk about some of the models that we've developed at Public Impact to do that, and then talk about what it means for teachers, and then go from there. So the motivation for this in a lot of districts is numerous. So one, how can we retain great teachers that we have? How can we use pay and career opportunities to do that? How can we advance the skills of novice teachers faster by putting them on teams led by great teachers? How can we decrease the need that we have for new hires by extending the reach of great teachers we already have and use paraprofessionals strategically that are overseen by great teachers? And then finally, overall, how can we increase the percentage of students who have great teachers, going from the current 20 or 25% in most places to 80% plus? And the way that we're approaching this in the districts where we're working is through new school models where we change jobs and roles and schedules, and where we use technology in ways that save teachers time and also give kids customized, personalized learning experiences. And there's several different models that schools are using. I'm going to talk about the three of them here that are squared on this slide, and also a little bit about remotely located teaching. The first one is multi-classroom leadership. This is the idea of teachers with leadership skills who continue to teach, but also lead a team, and they're fully accountable for all the students that are being taught by that team. This is a model where a great teacher is able to help other teachers improve their craft while also continuing to teach the students within that team. Another model is elementary specialization, where the best teachers in a certain subject teach that subject to all the students or half of the students in a grade level rather than just one classroom. That's elementary specialization. And the third one is time technology swaps, or just time swaps in general. This is the idea of students spending part of their day learning with digital learning or doing some other kind of self-directed work overseen by a paraprofessional. Meanwhile, the teacher then is free to work with other students or to work with the team, work with other teachers to improve their craft and look at data and plan and do all the other things we know teachers need to be doing with their time. They're swapping time that students are spending on their own with time that they can be with other students or be with other teachers working together. And then finally, the idea of remote teaching. Here's an idea of teachers living in one place, teaching students in other places, whether that's across the district or whether it's across the state or even across the country. In some places, it's very difficult for schools to find an AP calculus teacher who's highly effective, or an AP physics teacher or other advanced classes. How can schools use communications technology to remotely teach across distances in ways they wouldn't be possible if you're just relying on your in-house staff? All these models in some way involve the use of paraprofessionals as individual teachers are extending their reach. Paraprofessionals that we in Charlotte call reach associates can take on some of the duties of overseeing students, supervising online learning, overseeing other kinds of work, completing administrative duties, and so forth. They're working under the direction of teachers. Teachers are responsible for the instructional direction, but these reach associates play a key role in many of these models. And just backing up from the specific models, all of them have these opportunity culture principles at their heart. They're all about reaching more students successfully with great teachers and their teams. They're all about paying excellent teachers more for extending their reach, funding that pay with a regular budget so that the models are sustainable over time, giving teachers more time in school to collaborate, plan, and develop, and overall matching the authority and accountability that teachers have with their responsibilities. In these models, excellent teachers are taking more responsibility, more accountability for students as they advance in their careers. What does this mean for teachers? Teachers under these models get the opportunity to reach more students, have more impact, lead and develop their peers. They can earn more, and Dan, I think, can talk a little bit about how that's working in Charlotte. They can focus their time on areas in which they excel, and they can really have more power within the school as leaders. At the same time, new and solid teachers gain opportunities under this model. They can focus on their strengths, they can learn from their peers and collaborate, and they can move towards excellence over time as part of a team. The pay is an important part of these models. By restructuring the school budget, dollars are freed. Those dollars are then used to pay teachers more, and teachers are earning between 10% above average and 50% above average in some schools for taking on these added responsibilities. And in many cases, that's a key to helping them stay teachers rather than moving on to becoming administrators or leaving the profession altogether. And the savings from the models is what pays for these pay increases. There are no special grants, there are no special dollars flowing for this. Instead, savings from the models allows these pay increases to happen. So less costly paraprofessionals are supervising some of the instruction and non-instructional time. Some folks who previously served as non-classroom instructional specialists, literacy facilitators, and so forth are moving back into classrooms and taking these roles, and that also frees dollars. This savings together makes it possible to pay teachers more. This work is going on in a number of places: Charlotte-Mecklenburg, Metro Nashville, Syracuse in New York, Cabarrus County, which is next door to North Carolina, to Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and then in several other districts around the country that are in the planning stages. There are over 30 schools implementing, another 20 or so in design phase. So what I want to do now is pause and turn it over to Dan Swartz and introduce him. Dan is, as she said, the human capital strategist for LIFT. He's also the person within LIFT, which is a zone of schools in Charlotte, that has really taken on the job of turning these ideas into action within CMS. And so I'm going to turn off my slides and turn it over to Dan, who can tell you a little more about what's been going on in Charlotte.
Thanks, Brian. Well, my name's Dan Swartz, and I am, as Brian mentioned, the Human Capital Strategy Specialist for Project LIFT. Project LIFT is a unique turnaround initiative in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have 9 schools that create a feeder pattern into West Charlotte High School. And what makes this turnaround initiative so unique is that we have a public-private partnership. So we have some philanthropic leaders in Charlotte who have stood up and said that the achievement gap needs to be closed. And so they have raised a tremendous amount of money and partnered with Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools to bring this change around. And we have a goal of creating a 90% graduation rate at West Charlotte High School within 5 years. To do that, as you know, we need the best teachers to be a part of that turnaround initiative. And so partnering with Brian made tremendous sense. A great teacher in every classroom will help us achieve our goals. And so as every good principal knows, you're only as good as the talent within your building. And so we sought to extend the reach of the excellent teachers which we had. You can't find an excellent teacher for every classroom. There is a shortage, as you're probably well aware, and so opportunity culture made sense. We established a design for how to do this. We brought some schools together. 4 schools initially signed up to be a part of opportunity culture. They created design teams. And with those design teams, they created models that would fit their specific needs of the schools. While they were doing that, I was working on sort of the human resource side of things to create job descriptions, figure out how we're going to pay teachers more, even while we're on sort of that teacher pay scale, and also worked with different HR resource teams to identify how are we going to evaluate these individuals and how are we going to create these positions, all while staying within budget for the schools. And so we took about a year planning in order to do this, and schools came up with some really strong designs. We launched in February of 2012. No, February 2013, we launched our schools, and we actually hired for just about 20 positions. We are now planning for year 3 of this implementation. Through the course of a year and a half, we have seen teacher retention, we have seen teacher recruitment increase, and we have seen job satisfaction increase. And those are all very strong indicators to a very successful opportunity culture. Because of the findings that we have seen initially, Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, one of the largest school districts, have also adopted opportunity culture, and they have brought on 17 additional schools as well. This year, nearly all of our Project LIFT schools have adopted opportunity culture because they have seen from their peers the value that it brings, not only from a retention standpoint, but a recruitment standpoint with teachers. One of the big questions we always hear is, how did you do that within current dollars? How did you that Mecklenburg schools, and I'm sure in every other school, principals have the opportunity to make choices based for staffing. You know, they can create an extra teacher, they can add more paraprofessionals. What we did was we added to the menu list of what principals could create. And we added multi-classroom leadership. We added reach teachers, either through blended learning or through the use of paraprofessionals. And so through that sort of menu choice, the principals and the design teams were able to create these positions. We filled these positions. We had a very strong candidate pool initially, even when it was brand new and people hadn't really sort of heard of this concept. This year, again, we saw an increase in candidates, not only in the quantity, but also in the quality of candidates. And so there's been a very strong response from all of the teachers within the schools and all of the teachers that have heard about opportunity culture. It's one of our big selling points within Project Lift. So.
Great. So yeah, just a question. In terms of teachers and their the kind of shifts that are involved with this, it seems like in some ways it's perhaps shaking up their world to some extent, or at least getting out of routines and perhaps comfort zones. So I'm just wondering how the transition and support making these shifts into what is clearly a different way of thinking and approaching the organizing of teaching and learning.
That's a great question, Scott. I can answer a bit, and Scott, Dan may have some other thoughts. One thing we've done, Charlotte and elsewhere, is to create design teams of teachers that figure out how to make this work in their own school. So we're not coming in with a cookie cutter model that says this is exactly how this should work. Instead, we're putting ideas on the table, possibilities within some parameters. Then teachers sitting around the table are hammering out designs that they think will work for their school. And then they're also adapting those over time to the needs of their school. And that doesn't mean, as you're saying, that they're not really changing what's happening, but putting teachers in the driver's seat makes a big difference as far as acceptance. And then having those teachers also communicate actively out to their peers, get feedback on their designs, monitor how things are going, also makes a huge difference. But all that to say, it is a big change for teachers, and there's a lot that needs to happen, not just in terms of this sort of involvement and buy-in, but also training and support. And Dan, you may have some to add about how y'all have approached this in CMS.
Yeah, Brian, you hit on it perfectly with the design team, and the communication strategy that we had was we wanted to communicate regularly, and we wanted to use the teachers in the design team to communicate this process. And so I sat in on a number of communication sessions with the entire staff, and when they proposed this idea of opportunity culture, if you can imagine a typical staff meeting, everybody's sitting back, sort of slunched down in their seat. When they started to describe all of the opportunities available to teachers, they perked right up. Everybody was on the edge of their seat. There was a ton of questions afterwards. So the interest was there. When you bring in money and you bring in new roles and leadership, obviously there is going to be, I'm reporting to this person now, this is a little bit different. You'll have that with anywhere, but generally speaking, great teachers are put in leadership positions informally in schools, and what this does is really it formalizes a little bit more and rewards them for the work that they're actually doing. So while it is different, it's not far-fetched from a typical teacher situation.
Great. And also wondering just what have been the key lessons? Have there been some surprises along the way as you've kind of moved from planning into implementation? And what were there ahas?
Brian, I'll lead this one, and then you can jump in. I think really the aha is that you have to get people to think outside of the box. I think when we come up with something new, like Brian has, we want to categorize it into something that we already know. And you have to stop and say, this is new. Like, don't put it into a current box that you have. And so once you approach it that way, of this is going to be something brand new, and let's treat it as brand new, then opportunities open to different evaluation systems, different pay, and that was the big thing in working with like a large school district in a school, is people wanted to associate this position with a typical position that you would see at a school, like a facilitator or a dean or something like that. And really, when you stop and say this is brand new, people begin to have the light bulb go off on their head, and then they start getting excited. They start sort of shaking loose of the constraints that we put on ourselves in the schools, and start saying, well, man, like get their imagination going, and it's like, wow, well, what about this, and what about this, and you just step back and say, exactly, like that's what we're talking about. We're talking about creating something to fit the needs that we currently have, and so that's been the biggest aha for me, is I talk to people about first stepping out of what they know into sort of that world of opportunity.
Dan, this is Ann. Question for you. So with regards to parents, that they can their world a little bit too with what their expectations are about what their kids are experiencing at school. So what have been some of the insights about working with parents through the process?
So we have worked with parents, and we've tried to communicate, because it is very different that now they may have a multi-classroom leader overseeing their children as well as a teacher, and so the parent-teacher conferences can be very different at that point in time. We have found tremendous feedback from parents, because it's really like the things that we get to say with parents is, this teacher has proven effectiveness, and now they're overseeing all of your students. And so if you're a parent and you're walking into a building and you find out that your teacher only has 1 or no years of experience, which is often the case in turnaround schools and low-performing schools, you probably get more defensive than when we get to say, this, you have 2 people, you have 2 teachers assigned to you. This teacher who has a degree and is fully licensed to be a teacher, but also someone who comes with that experience, and someone who comes with that understanding of how to impact students in a positive way. And so it's been taken very positively. There's really nothing other than the newness and who do I talk to, like that type of thing. But they love the fact that we're addressing the needs of their students with more than one teacher.
One quick follow-up question. So children are now experiencing maybe school a little differently than they have before, and the way that they've known school to be for so long. So how's that transition going for actual students in classrooms who may be in a classroom with more children and a couple teachers, or less children in a lab of some? How's that transition going for kids? Well, and I'll mute my mic so we can put out reverberation.
So from a student perspective, how fun, fun school is really dictated by the teacher. And so what we've found is, if you're a successful teacher and you're getting student achievement gains, you probably are building those relationships and creating a more fun environment for the student. And so I've never met a student who had an excellent teacher who just didn't like them. Like, I can't believe they got that A+ out of me. I'm so angry. And so the teachers experience that, the students experience that teacher and that relationship, and that adds to the interest of school. And I think we all know that technology and students go hand in hand, and so they really enjoy being on the computer more and sort of learning those 21st century skills and those technology skills that will really help them be successful in tomorrow's economy. And so it's only helped that. The class size is nominal. It has increased in some situations, but in many cases, because of the use of computer labs and sort of blended learning environments, it's not an increase in class size as you typically think about it. I always explain it as a teacher's responsibility may have increased from 30 to 35 students, but the students actually experience smaller environments. So.
Question for Brian. As you kind of look across different schools and projects, the use of different models, are there certain obstacles that appear kind of more regularly than others, and how have you learned to address those?
There are potential obstacles. I think some of the big ones are, one, in some places there are policy barriers to adopting some of these models. So, for example, very strict rules about how funding can be used in some states and districts can make it difficult to do the kind of reallocation that we're doing in Charlotte and even in North Carolina. There are some restrictions that would make this harder to do at a big scale. So there's a set of state policy or district policy issues that can get in the way. There are also issues that relate to the short-term funding needed to do this kind of work. The long-term, these models are designed to be sustainable. Short-term, districts need someone like Dan to really embrace the work and put time into it. In Charlotte's case, they've engaged us to help and other outside assisters. There are costs associated with that, and that has to be covered in that short term. So that's another barrier. But then I think really the main barriers beyond those come back to what Dan described, which is kind of barriers of the mind, that we're used to doing this a certain way, school a certain way, we've all been to school. How do we break out of that and think differently in ways that might be better for teachers, better for students, but do require us to think differently? And so that's one that we run into everywhere, but by engaging people in the conversation, that's one that's more easily overcome, perhaps, than the others. Dan, I don't know if you have any other barriers. I think we could probably make a long list because it's a complicated effort.
I think you hit on them. I don't have anything else to add. That was good.
So. Yeah, it's unmuted. Yeah. So Brian, I know that you co-authored an interesting report, projected statewide impact of opportunity culture school models, and it looks at kind of what this might look like at scale in terms of impact and evidence, or what the results might be if we take it to scale. And I'd be interested. I think viewers might be interested to hear about some of those implications. Oh, you muted.
Yes, we took the experience that we'd had in Charlotte and we said, what if we were able to see these kinds of models happen in schools across the state? What would be the possible impact of that? And of course, there's a lot we don't know because this is early days. So we're speculating in a lot of ways. But just based on, for example, how much teachers are earning in the lift schools, where they can earn between about $5,000 and about $23,000 above the salary schedule for taking on these roles, what would that mean for teachers over a 35-year career? Well, it would mean they could earn over $800,000 more over their career if they were taking on these roles, and perhaps even more if they took on even larger spans of leadership. in CMS, beyond Lyft, some of the teachers who are just part of the teams that are extending their reach are earning more. Those teachers, even without taking on the leadership roles, could earn $240,000 more over their careers. We also tried to estimate the effects on state economic growth, state economic success, if in fact these models lead to increased student achievement, which is the data we're now crunching. Dan is in the middle of looking at that himself. If the benefits of great teaching are extended to more students as a result of this kind of model, what would that mean for the students, but also for the state in terms of the economic value of that? So this was a thought experiment, number crunching, trying to say, what if you did go for this in a big way and it was successful? What would that mean? And so it's an interesting experiment to go through. It's an interesting report to take a look at. But I think what we're most confident in is those benefits for teachers, because we can see that right off the bat, and we can see, as Dan said, teachers flocking to try and get these positions where 700-800 people from many states apply to Lyft to try and get the 19, 20, 30 positions that are open to them through these models. So that's where we see the most immediate benefit. Projecting that out would be big for a state like North Carolina.
And I understand you have some video that we could maybe take a look at. I think that would be really interesting to kind of see what we can see in terms of opportunity culture.
Yes, we have a 2-minute video, or 2 to 3 minute video, one from Charlotte, and one from Lyft, and one from Nashville, Tennessee, where we get to hear from some teachers who are involved in the work. And I think that, why don't we, Anne, if you have that Lyft one where you could show it, that would be great. Or if you want me to do it, I might need some technical support.
Let me try it from this end first, Brian. If
Okay.
everyone will mute your mic, so maybe we won't have any kind of reverberation going on. And then Marcy, if you could let me know, or if someone can let me know if you can, well, Brian, if you can let me know if you can, when you can see it and hear it, okay? Just a second.
I have so many different friends that are dying for a job like this. For me, this is a dream job, and I wouldn't want to do anything else. Opportunity culture helps great teachers stay in the classroom. It rewards them financially for the work that they're doing and keeps them in the classroom longer. Opportunity culture provides teachers the opportunity to build their skills as a leader, but also stay within the classroom. Through opportunity culture, there are multiple roles, such as the multi-classroom leader, as well as the blended learning teacher. Blended learning is using a mix of digital online learning with classroom small groups. So we have half our kids working in the back on our Chromebooks and half of our kids working with us in small groups.
A typical day in the life of a multi-class leader would be a day where you would have a combination of teaching, definitely, but also a lot of feedback giving.
So I really value the coaching model and being able to have a high-performing teacher coach our newer teachers. You know, we're kind of like planting seeds all throughout the building, and then our impact is then just trickling down. I think school-wide, our teachers have just felt more empowered, the ones that we work with, because they're getting constant support. Just the chance to stay in the classroom but be in 10 different classrooms and work with 200 children as opposed to 25, I think it's really, really exciting. Opportunity culture allows teachers to see themselves in the profession with the future. Oftentimes teachers believe they have to leave the classroom to be impactful and to have a leadership role, but opportunity culture allows you to do that with the students still in the classroom but still expanding your impact. Opportunity culture gets us the best of the best in our classrooms.
There we go, Brian. Were we able to see it okay? Great.
Yes.
Great. Brian, I also hope that we can maybe think about maybe a little bit later showing the Metro Nashville one also.
Let's do that in a bit. Okay. One question I saw come in on the chat is about the role of unions in this work. We are working in one place, Syracuse, where there's a teachers union. I think I hear the Nashville.
Sorry, go ahead.
In Syracuse, the Syracuse Teachers Association has really been a partner with us in this work, and I think they there see the value of having advanced roles for their members and being able to offer advanced pay and attached to those roles. That's something that they've been advocating for, and now this is a way they can do that. Now I think unions everywhere have a complicated relationship with their districts, and the question of where should the money come from to pay for this kind of role is a live one in Syracuse and in all other places. And so I think there's already a push and pull in any district between teachers and administration perhaps about that, and that's true in Syracuse as well. But I think where we've seen that common ground is we want to create these opportunities for our members. It's going to help them advance. It's going to help other teachers learn on the job. Let's do that, and let's support it. The other thing that the union really in Syracuse has helped us invest a lot in is the professional development that teachers are getting for taking on these roles, and the union's been a big partner in developing and delivering that because they see that as so important. So I think though Charlotte and Nashville are both places where there's not a collective bargaining agreement between teachers and the district, Syracuse is, and in all these places this is proceeding in different ways but similar in a lot of ways as well.
Quick follow-up question for you, Brian. So, I mean, I imagine that there are lots of districts who would like to learn more about this and maybe have questions about how do we get started, how do we go about building a coalition around this work. So what have you learned about some initial steps that districts can take that want to begin to have these kinds of conversations with their stakeholders?
Well, the first thing I would say is that one of the things we've been able to do with the support of the different funders of the Opportunity Culture Initiative is create a toolkit that we've put on our website, opportunityculture.org. So there's a free set of resources there that any district could use to begin to think about this set of ideas and then begin to move down the path of design and implementation. So that's opportunityculture.org. That's a source of some tools that any district could use. I think some of the big decisions that the districts need to make in order to get into this include, first, just are we committed to doing this kind of work? Do we want to find a way to reach 75–80% of our students with great teachers, and are we willing to do what it takes to get there? With that commitment in hand, I think the next set of decisions have to do with what sort of parameters the district is going to put on the initiative. What kind of building blocks are they going to give schools to work with? So, for example, in the case of Charlotte, they've created a set of job descriptions, these roles that schools have available to them. They've attached compensation to those job descriptions. They've attached requirements about how schools need to reallocate their budgets to free the dollars to pay those sets of compensation. This is all set out in a series of policies and tools, spreadsheets, job descriptions, and so forth, which then schools can take as a set of building blocks and put together in whatever way makes sense for them. But without those building blocks, it would be hard for an individual school in a district to do what the schools in Charlotte or these other districts are doing. So that district level building block creation is a really important part. And then finally, districts need to think about how to start. In Charlotte, the LIFT zone is a zone of high need schools where the need for great teachers was acute, and that's the same place Nashville started. It's the same place Syracuse started. But they started with a few schools, which then piloted, and then they could think about how to scale that beyond. But that's a critical decision. And getting schools on board where the principal and the teachers are excited and want to try something different is a great way to get started rather than saying, here's something that we're making you do.
Well, having access to that toolkit and to those resources, it kind of jump starts the let's not reinvent the wheel over and over again is really critical to the work, and we look forward to making those resources available electronically to Collaboration for Innovation leaders who are very interested in this work.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about or asked about that you think is especially important for system or school level leaders to hear about in relation to all of this?
Dan, you should feel free to jump in as well. I think the one thing I would say is that there's a lot of interest nationwide in teacher leadership. There's a lot of interest nationwide in career paths for teachers and compensation reform. And so I want to just emphasize a few aspects of this that I think are really different from what may be happening in other places, just so that people can see the contrast and decide if it really is something that they want to think about pursuing. And I think that the big ones are, first, that these roles and career options that are being created in these districts are ones that ask teachers to take responsibility for more students. So they're not being taken out of the line of responsibility. They're not taking a job that's apart from students, but instead they're taking one where there are more students in their responsibility. Now, are they teaching full-time? No, they're spending a lot of time, if they're multi-classroom leaders, working with their peers, but they're still connected to the students. And in North Carolina, they're connected through the accountability system to those students that are part of their team's roster. So that's one really different aspect, I think, from many roles. And then the second one is the financial sustainability. So the idea that we're asking schools to think, what can they do with their existing resources to free the dollars to make these roles possible? That means they'll be able to keep doing it for as long as they find it valuable. They won't have to worry about a grant ending or the TIF grant going away or the grant from the foundation ending, but instead they can keep at it if they want to, if it works. And that's a really important distinction. And I'll see if Dan has any other points that he thinks might be worth.
I think you nailed it, Brian. The big thing for principals, I think, is the commitment to opportunity culture, to the principals that they have. I think for a district level, it's the willingness of the principal and the teachers. Again, this works best not as this is a new program, but as something that starts as an idea and people get excited about it at the school level. The other thing that I would say for the principal is to not look internally at your staff and use opportunity culture as a way to reward, but use it as a way to incentivize teachers to take on more and to do more with students, and also as a way to recruit, to bring in the teachers needed at the school. That's been a big help for us in the recruitment side of things, is that we're now attracting teachers who may have gone into other industries and other professions because of opportunity culture. And so to get those types of teachers into our schools is a game changer for us.
Well, Brian and Dan, this has been just a wealth of information that I know that will help the work of Collaboration for Innovation. Again, the districts that we work with are completely committed to advancing equity and academic excellence, and certainly the things that we've heard about today fit exactly with those goals. Brian, we want to thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. Dan, we look forward to circling back up with you in the future for the noble work that's going on in Charlotte. And Brian, if it's okay with you, we'll close with the Metro National Video.
Okay, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Here we go. Let's see. If I can get it going, let's see. Hang on for just a second. Here we go.
What really makes me excited about opportunity culture is the different opportunities that are available in terms of leadership. And I've always been interested in leadership, just didn't really know what avenue to follow. And this opportunity culture gave me that avenue to still be able to work with students, but still have hands-on interaction with teachers as well.
I'd say that Dr. Sawyer gave me my wings. He let me fly and do amazing work. Even though last year was my first year here, I took a group of scholars and ended up making them national STEM champions in a huge contest. They got to go to Austin, Texas to present their research, and then they won $40,000 in technology for our school. Those kinds of things really changed the culture of our school. And suddenly we had students who were role models and heroes.
Really to lead other teachers. I've been a team leader, grade level chairperson, more than I've served on the leadership team. So just the opportunity to share with others is like to spread my wings out. So I feel like I was a bird inside my room. Now I have my wings, and everyone's up under the wing that I can work with.
I'm very much immersed in the teaching and in the work on the ground, which I think is different. I think a lot of leadership positions in most schools, it is a top-down mindset, and that's not what we do here. We're in the mix. We're there. It's all hands on deck.
In this role, you're so many people. You wear so many hats. Sometimes I feel like I need a cape on me, because I can come in and I can be the rescuer. I can be the it's okay. It's gonna be okay. I can be a person to wipe the tears. I can be the person to get in there to coach, to model, to give them feedback. So with the NCO role, you're so many people. They were like, we're looking for strong teachers, and we want you to kind of spread yourself amongst the other teachers and help them down and support them. And I love that, because you don't want to hear about your other teammates struggling. If there's something I'm doing that's working, I want to be able to share it with you. Now I can share that with everybody.